Hey everybody, and thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar topic is Smarter Automation with AI. We're going to talk about how you can leverage automation with AI to really drive more efficiency in your business. I'm pleased to welcome my co-host here, Karl Bickmore, the CEO here at Raven Automation. And my name is Jared Brantley. I am the Chief Automation Officer here at Raven. So in addition to talking more,
just say hello.
In addition to talking more about AI and automation together, some of the things that we're going to talk about today, we'll talk about some of the use cases for APIs, large language models or LLMs, AI agents with RAG or retrieval augmented generation. We're going to talk about how you can leverage these technologies to implement some smarter workflows starting now. So before we get there, Karl, you're older than I am, so you'll probably reflect with this timeline better. So let's talk about the evolution of automation. I still remember a day when we didn't have any RMM tools to take advantage of, and everything that we did was writing batch files and things like that would run at user login.
Oh yeah, login.bat, autoexec.bat if you really want to go back. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the old days, putting all your scripts in the net logon folder. So thankfully we've gone past that. We've moved from scripts and basic automation to having some capability in the really later 2010s here with more workflow focused tools with things like Power Automate. We started to see some players hit the space. I mean, I forget when UiPath was formed, but I think that's one of the more well-known workflow based tools that are out there. As we fast forward today, the marketplace is just overloaded with various tools that you can use, from Roost to N8N to Tines. Of course, AI-powered solutions are really a big part of this at this point. And now that we've kind of gone there, we can clearly see automation has come a long way. Karl, what do you see happening here in the future?
Well, yeah, so this is a really good thought. It's interesting because, the decades make sense, the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, but I feel like AI-powered automation should almost have an asterisk and say 2024, 2025-ish, because it's gone so far in just the last year or so on the adoption, the people thinking about it. Now, AI automation actually has been here for a while, but it's become more powerful. It's generating very quickly. But I do think there's a lot of confusion in the space and a lot of people that feel like they just don't even know where to start and they don't know how the distinction works. And so, the thing I say all the time is, like, a lot of times when you're talking to people, when they think about AI, they're probably actually thinking about a form of automation that doesn't even need AI in the sense that no intelligence is needed. You just see a condition and you can execute a script. But where does AI fit in then, as far as, like, maybe it's interacting with the user, or maybe it's meaningfully executing an automation that another automation tool does, or maybe the agentic AI can actually legitimately do the automation piece as well. But it's incredible from an authorship standpoint. It's incredible from a research standpoint and information. The ability to interact natural language style is pretty powerful as well. And so these are all things that are just really coming out of the scene. And I would say most people I talk to are still like, I don't know what to do about it, where to go, but I can see that it's available. And I don't know about you, Jared, but, like, to me, AI has been a part of the everyday workflow. And I think maybe that's one of the things where people miss the concept is just like most of us would probably have Google open for a search, 5 years ago, and just about everything we do. I think most people go AI first, or a lot of folks go AI first in that kind of informational side. But the whole agentic piece is a lot more complicated and maybe not as far along as you want it to be. And so marrying it with automation tools and using a mixture is pretty powerful. And I think that's really what we want to talk about today is like where are we at right now? What can you do and what do we see coming? But what do I see coming? I see a world where, you know, the need to write low-level automation code is probably not as big a deal. But I also don't see any AI where you can just say, I'm trying to solve this problem, and it would come up with a solution to design, understand the tools to work with. And so the human element is still really, really a critical core component to where to point the AI or point the AI automation. But it's coming and developing fast. It's easier than ever to accomplish things in a relatively short period of time if you know what you're looking for and understand how the tools work.
Yeah, you know, you're really hitting a great topic here. Today, most people interact with AI by simply using some kind of portal like ChatGPT or Copilot and typing in a few sentences in as a prompt and letting it run. But that seems to be where the disconnect is. How do we take it a step further and get beyond that user-initiated chat with an AI?
Yeah, if you're
really
using
go to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just using it as a search replacement, you're not doing enough. And some people think like, well, I just got to get better at prompting. I say, I'm not so sure. Why not have it tell you how to prompt? Because it's really good at it. And so it's like, just you need to think at a different level. Like it's almost like I'm having a conversation or talking to a person, and how would I say it? And then what the outcomes come and what you do with them is the critical piece. But the genesis of the idea and understanding what you can do is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, well, you know, when you combine AI and automation together, you really get this concept of smart automation. And what is smart automation? I mean, simply put, smart automation is automation that adapts to context instead of just blindly following a set of rules. If we think about traditional automation, right, all of your old school auto exec batch scripts and things of this nature, they were rule-based. If X happens, do Y. If then, do that, right? Well, when we take this and incorporate AI into it, now we have automation that can understand nuance, automation that can handle exceptions, you know. And while I know that a significant part of our viewer base are MSPs, you know, if you're an MSP, this is a huge advantage for you. You can have fewer mistakes, faster service times, a better client experience. If you're not an MSP and just, you know, any other business, there's still tremendous things that you can do with AI inside of your business to revolutionize and support your team. You know, we'll talk more about some of these use cases as we kind of go on, but when we start talking about smart automation, this is what we mean. We are talking about automations that now have AI functionality baked in.
Yeah, to me, some of the killer use cases, and we're going to talk about these in a minute, but get involved with the how do you, what's the right strategy, for instance, on customer interaction, and how natural can that be, and how useful, or will they reject it? There's some really great questions about it. I'm excited to talk about use cases because I think that's really going to be where people start seeing, oh, this is already ready. I could do this, you know, and do I want to? Is it going to do what I want it to do? It's good questions.
Yeah, you know, and if you're on the other side of that fence that doesn't see AI as potentially revolutionizing your business, let's talk a little bit why AI matters, right? If you just really think about some of the things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, you know, as an MSP, for example, you're going to get tons of repetitive tickets from your clients, simple things that you guys do over and over and over again, and you have thoroughly documented processes for that. You know, if you're not an MSP, maybe you have some reports or you have data that you have to review and look at to compile a report to provide to a client or to a stakeholder or to anyone else that needs it. AI can come through and have significant reductions on that manual work. It can certainly help you scale your business operations without adding any additional headcount. You can give your clients faster, smarter support. You know, Karl, you have an MSP as well. Why don't we talk a little bit about some pain points that you've experienced with your own MSP?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, look, when I think about like where we've had the wins with AI integrated automation or just automation in general, like some of the stuff that we've been putting together in the last couple of months in particular has really made a difference. And we've released some stuff to our customer base that we've been testing, working on for a while that we're seeing a lot of success with. But I think one of the things that maybe is we've learned along the way is there's a little bit more nuance to it than you might originally think. I also think that, you know, the work of creating it and getting it right with all the error correction thing probably takes longer than I initially thought. It gets better with AI, but it's still, there's this pretty serious amount of work putting these things together. But once they're together, the ROI comes pretty quickly. But I think about like one of the, I think our initial mistakes in thinking is like, well, how can I automate that entire process? And I've now come to the conclusion that it's far better to think about which pieces are mundane or repetitive or easily automated and which parts can easily hand off to the, you know, the technician or the human element to then take it from there. And so to me, it's like, I love like the things around triage where I don't have a human like categorizing a ticket as it comes in anymore. It's coming kind of ready to go with all the things checked off and looked into, and it does a pretty good job. Or providing interactive chats for customers to help them either maybe get a suggested solution right off the bat, or helping figure out who would be the right person on our team to actually get involved with. So really using AI to help them get to a person, not to solve their problem. And those are kind of different ways of thinking about what part of it is AI versus how could it all be AI. Makes it a lot more easy to gain ground, and also, frankly, a better experience for everybody in general, which I think you really have to watch out for, because you can really make your customers mad with automation solutions too. I know we've done automations that customers got frustrated with. It's like, I know this is AI, I know this is easier for you, but I get all these tickets and I feel like I'm just talking to a computer. I'm like, oh, okay, we need to change how we're approaching that. I know we were doing that with spam requests that customers want us to look at, and we were handling with the AI, but eventually some of our point of contacts are like, I just got like 1 million tickets and I don't know what to do with all of these. And I know it's awesome AI is doing this for you, but I feel like I'm getting spammed myself with your spam fixing tickets, right? And so you know, you got to think about user experience and how that works. But man, there are some major wins to happen, and it really helps us do a much better job of getting after things quickly. And if there's anything that has really shifted in, say, the last 5 or 6 years, it's that customers have higher and higher expectations on performance, accuracy, and speed. And so if you can be the friendly voice and AI can help you with the speed, and automation can help you with the speed, you got a winning formula. So those are things that I'm thinking about in my business, that in ways that we found touches to add automation and AI that really make us more efficient, but also way faster for the customer, which is a better experience for them.
Yeah, you know, while not necessarily a topic for this particular webinar, but I think you're bringing about a great potential pitfall. Just because you start to implement all of these solutions doesn't mean you reduce the touch points with your customers or with your clients. You know, they still want to talk to your people. They still want to interact with humans. I bet I could count on both hands the number of people that actually enjoy calling AT&T or Comcast and getting the auto attendant there and trying to talk through where they want to go to get the help that they need, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is the thing that you got to be balancing, is like, where does it feel like a terrible phone system calling, answering system versus helpful, useful, making it easier, getting me to my solution faster, all those kind of things. That's a really big point you have to be paying attention with when it interacts with the customer, right? And that's a big deal. But I think AI has some really solid use cases for customer interaction, because it's way more capable of that than ever before. A lot less like working through a logic tree and a lot more like a conversation.
So let's talk about the 3 layers of modern automation. So you've got 3 basic components here: APIs, LLMs, and AI agents. The easiest way to explain how all of these things kind of blend together is APIs are the foundation. Those are kind of the gateways with how we interact with different systems. LLMs, or large language models, Those bring the intelligence. That's where we can kind of read and understand context and text and things like that. But the AI agent is kind of a merge of both of them. That's when we really start to get the autonomy aspect there. We have the ability to interact with systems thanks to APIs. We have the ability to understand what someone's asking and get the context from the LLM side. And now we have the agent that can actually go and do. So we jump through just a little bit there, I apologize. But if we think about those as building blocks in that regard, our ultimate end game is to get to those autonomous workflows. And so we take that first layer, API-based workflows. Again, those APIs are kind of like message queues. They're going to allow two different systems to talk to each other, share information, do various tasks without the need for you to understand the back-end code for each specific application to do a task. They basically serve as entry points for those applications. Virtually every major application has some form of API capability. That could be your CRMs like ticketing systems or HubSpot or any of Salesforce, any of the tools that are out there. Could be accounting platforms, QuickBooks Online, NetSuite.
Yeah,
could be HR platforms.
This is a big deal because, you know, I think even as early as just a year ago in 24, we would say a lot less had functional APIs than they do today. Certainly back to 23. I still every now and then talk to somebody and says, hey, what do you know about this? And I'm like, ooh, that one, they're still behind. They're still kind of a dinosaur application, haven't really opened their APIs,
Yeah.
but this is just how it's done today. And so this is available to just about everything, not everything. And so I'm sorry if you or your customers have one of those little pet applications that just can't seem to keep up with the times and get API stuff together, but this is available almost everywhere.
Yeah, well, you know, if you go back just, you know, at this point, 3 to 5 years ago, APIs were just a kind of a bonus feature for whatever tool that you were working with. Now APIs are becoming part of the purchasing decision. You know, how robust is your API? That now affects whether or not a business chooses to move forward with a particular product or solution.
When I tell you, when we're recommending software options or helping customer do the due diligence on them, like we generally will tell customers to decline a platform if it doesn't have this kind of functionality. It's, to me, it's even gone, like, yes, it's definitely part of the decision making, and it'd have to be some really big reason to not have it and still go forward with an application. But in general, to me, it's more like table stakes when you're picking a software. And everybody knows it. They say it. They got to talk about it. And the ones that aren't ready, which are few now, talk about how they're working on it. You know, whether they're going to deliver or not, whether it'll be helpful or not, it's another question, because not every API is the same, right? But this availability is very common. And so if you haven't got the connection of putting these things together and creating even just rule-based automation between this happened in my CRM, so now this happens in my ordering system or my quoting tool, or this user just got created my HR password, here's their Office 365 login. If you haven't done those kind of things, then you're probably a few years behind now.
Yeah, you know, and make no mistake about it, just because API-based workflows are the foundational layer, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have AI incorporated into that workflow, right? Yeah. It's just another tool in your toolbox to get a job done.
Yeah, sometimes rule-based works fine for what you need. Yeah.
So moving on to layer 2, you've got LLM workflows. You know, in this case, LLMs, they can basically read, summarize, and analyze human-like text. They're great at working with unstructured data. So if you've got a file repository with tons of PDFs out there, you can have an LLM ingest that unstructured information and serve that information back up. But LLMs excel at tasks such as summarizing data, analyzing data for sentiment or possible trends. Granted, you get into more machine learning at that point, but nonetheless. And they're also great with suggesting responses. Hey, we've done this, we've looked at this, okay, we'll go try this next, you know. So this is extremely powerful for an MSP, an MSP, because now with LLM focused workflows, you can process that unstructured information like your tickets. You can summarize those things. You can generate those client communications automatically. If you're not an MSP, from a general business approach, maybe you have multiple financial sheets, or maybe you need to read from all of the notes inside of a CRM and generate some kind of report for account management, right? LLMs give you that capability.
Yeah, I think one of the things I feel like,
yeah,
just real quick on the LLM side of it, I think one of the things that's feels like more like a relatively new development. I feel like we started meaningfully talking about this maybe 3-4 months ago, is some of the new deep search stuff that's out there can produce a lot more presentable, or a report with greater veracity, one that you can maybe use a little bit better. I think it has been able to do reports for a while, but you get problems with hallucinations, problems with like it making up things and whatnot. And some of those newer deep searches or thinking versions tended to have a lot better rigor, I guess, on the reporting side. So that's kind of new. Is like, I feel like you can rely on that a lot more than you could even 5-6 months ago. That to me is like a pretty new thing that's happening.
And finally, we have AI agents. So these are really the autonomous entities that combine the automation capabilities from the rule-based APIs and the intelligence from the LLM to act on data. Using things like RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, agents can pull from your business data. We can give contextually accurate outputs. For example, an AI agent could retrieve client data, generate a response based on that data, even trigger an automation to fix an issue, all safely and accurately. And we actually do some of those things now with some of our tools and some of our partners to have those AI initiated or AI analyzed problems that call the resulting automation to fix the issue.
Yeah, this is much more the promised land of what we, at some level, I still think there's a degree of the unfulfilled promise of AI and what we're looking for. But the, to me, it's like a lot of it's getting pretty capable now. And so it's a real quandary to sort through that and figure out what you would rely on, what you wouldn't. But it's more capable than it was even a little bit ago. It's developing very fast now, way faster than the traditional 2-year Moore's law scenario. And so it's like, it's definitely time to be putting meaningful agents out there and doing some of this work. There are some real use cases that you can use this for that are pretty great. That even a few months ago were very practical.
That's a great segue. Let's talk about use cases. So, common use cases for the MSP. And Karl, you actually hinted on this already, talking earlier about some of the pitfalls and pains that you were experiencing, but automated ticket triage and suggested responses, AI generated reports and client summaries, onboarding workflows to collect data, provision other services, send out notifications, documentation updates. This is a personal favorite of mine. I hate writing SOPs, absolutely hate doing it. But I can sit there in a couple hours and churn out tons of SOPs with just a couple of prompts and,
yeah, I mean, this
AI generating those for me.
It's such a good use case for an LLM with generative AI to think that way. It really shines in that area. Yeah.
And then predictive monitoring, the ability to see everything that's happening inside of a client environment based on the notifications that you're getting, and put those pieces of the puzzle together to warn you of potential issues before they really severely affect your client. Now, when we talk about use cases for everyday business, right, there's tons of opportunity out here as well. Customer service. Every business out there still has to provide some level of customer service. The way you provide it could be different. You're not an IT company. You probably don't have service tickets, but you're still going to receive messages via email. You might get things, phone calls that get put into, CRM records and things like that. AI can certainly help review and triage those items to help you get them to the right people. Sales pipeline acceleration.
Yeah, so oftentimes we think about the MSP use case. A lot of our customers are MSPs, but every MSP has customers in every business too, or they're just straight up working directly with any business on an AI or automation. When you're thinking through this, the systems involved get pretty varied, but the reality is the use case is the same either way. Every business out there that is got to have a way of finding customers, a way of selling to the customer, a way of closing the deal and onboarding them and servicing the customer. And so, you may not have a formal CRM system or you need one, but having a methodology related to how you're tracking, how you're doing your sales process is pretty good. And having an income request, because that's an example, like such a big win piece is like, if you are a small business that struggles, like you get suddenly inundated requests and you're not doing a good job, or maybe it came in, you didn't notice it, man, time kills deals. And so like not responding to a request for like something with your services for a few days can really ruin your chance. And so this is a great example of how AI can at least just say, hey, you got a thing, did you respond yet? Can we take care of this? Some of us are using very simple things like just, hey, if it's coming to an inbox, do I have an AI tool for my email that helps me automatically draft my response? There's some really great options out there for those kind of things.
Yeah, well, outside of that, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine that happens to work with one of our solution partners that we work with for creating AI agents. And we were talking about a car wash business, and you might wonder, how can AI have anything to do with washing a car? But the reality is those businesses suffer from staffing issues just as well as anyone else. And that you might have one person working inside of that car wash and they have to answer the phones, respond to email messages, take care of any clients that happen to walk in for whatever their needs are. And actually, they were able to come in and create an AI agent to read and respond to, excuse me, to those emails coming through from the clients or potential customers rather, and give them the necessary information that they needed and actually generate more revenue as a result. Because let's face it, what happens if you can't get a response when you call your local car wash? You just go to a different one, right?
Yeah.
So that simple AI agent actually helped them grow their business by getting better responses to those messages. So outside of that, you got lots of other use cases, document processing and compliance, right? We can pull necessary details from contracts or agreements or whatever your records may be and update CRMs or generate reports or do whatever we need to do with those documents. On the HR and employee onboarding side, AI is great at assigning training. If you're using RAG, you can take your policies and procedures and incorporate those into a RAG model so that now you can provide a real Q&A. An employee can simply type into a prompt and ask a question, and they get the answer based on what's in your policies and procedures. And this is a personal favorite of mine, financial and operational reporting. Our back office team generates a nice one-page month-end financial summary, and they have it ready before we go in to do our monthly financial meeting. And I love getting that because it gives me all the information I need to know ahead of time so that I'm prepared to have good discussion with the rest of our executive team about, financial results or operational results and things of that nature. It's great at showing the trends, right? So that's a huge favorite right there. Definitely cuts down on the time we spend in the meeting as well.
Yeah. Look, like my controller gives me when we do a month close an AI generated summary now. That's pretty darn good, and it's really nice. It's like an executive summary, and so it doesn't take him any time to do it. He just points it to the file that he was going to present on in the finance meeting, and out comes the summary, pretty effective. It helps me get ready for that meeting in seconds, and I don't have to do much for it. I also think, like, you know, AI connected to accounting systems has some real big advantages as well. It's interesting. I hear mixed stuff about it because I know, like, some people are seeing the new Intuit AI inside of their QuickBooks, and I hear of people turning it off, not being a fan of it. But so I don't know about that one per se, but I do know we have other automation systems that will do things like figure out a customer's invoice isn't paid by looking at the books, and then send them a message within a certain time, certain things, and automatically include invoices and statements and things like that. That's a great use of AI that has been really successful for us. But or just workflow automation, I suppose, really is what that is. But but some of that AI stuff is pretty fresh, and I don't know how well it will work, but there's some really great use cases, a lot to explore. It's like there's a big open new candy land of things to figure out. It's kind of what this comes down to. It's like, what's the problem we want to solve? And man, there's probably a way to improve it.
There's a real arms race going on out there with every vendor trying to incorporate as much AI functionality into their platforms as possible so that they can stay competitive. You know, it's clear that the market wants to move to this direction, whether whether individuals in the market have the skills or knowledge to bring that to fruition, the desire is there. So you have all of these manufacturers that are really focused on trying to implement AI solutions, but they're probably missing some of the human oversight aspects of AI. You know, you might remember I mentioned that AI agents bring autonomy, but the real important thing to understand is autonomy does not mean solo or unassisted. There still has to be some level of human oversight. You know, that AI should never replace people. It should simply amplify what they do. You know?
Yeah, I've had this conversation with a lot of people in a lot of different fields. Like, I talked to a guy who has a software development company. I've talked to some folks at marketing companies, and I feel like there's definitely some forms of disruption that are happening. But one thing that remains true is that, you know, AI is not a great storyteller. It can tell a story that you tell it to tell pretty good. So from the marketing perspective, like, you know, creating a song or a video is not going to be great without the human direction, oversight, and vision. Same thing when it comes to, like, code. I mean, maybe the case for writing low-level code or low-level automations, you really shouldn't be cranking that out with a development tool writing that specific code as much anymore. But because the AI can do a lot of that and do a lot of that really well and quickly. But the idea of what to do and the outcome, and knowing if it did what it's supposed to do and knowing if it satisfied the customer need, AI is completely absent in that area.
Yeah, you know, while to that point, vibe coding, where you're using an AI to write all of your code for you, it's a real thing, and you can accomplish some pretty significant things that are there. But if you have someone that doesn't understand the code that's being generated, you also expose yourself to risk. You know, there could be potential security issues inside of that code. You could leak data that you don't intend to leak, you know. But kind of circling back, the big thing when it comes to AI and human oversight is ultimately let the AI handle the repetitive, predictable things. Your team should handle the nuance and the client relationship side. So.
Yeah, there's no breaking the human connection piece, and I think that it's interesting to discuss in any of your business. We did a strategy meeting for my MSP business just last week. We're thinking about the 3-year time frame horizon, and we had a real conversation about this. There was this interesting article going around. Turned out it was pretty much clickbait, but it was saying, hey, the #1 song in country music right now is AI generated, right? And because we're having this argument where I'm saying, I don't think that people are going to love having the cheap MSP that is just fully AI driven, no people, solves my problem, costs way less. I don't think people are going to feel good about that, because that system can get off the rails and nobody will notice. And the people that are trying to get stuff solved when the AI doesn't do what they want are going to be completely frustrated with no option. So I think the human touch is still a very critical element, and the customer service side. But what's the real great thing is humans are great at that. And so if you're using AI automation correctly, they can spend more time doing that, which should make for a much overall better customer experience and much stickier relationship, which is ultimately what I think we want to do. It's AI-assisted human interaction that's more efficient, faster, more effective, all the things people want. But it's still, I don't know if I'm ready to say, hey, let's just start, talking to computers all day, in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And you started to touch on some of this as well, but when it comes to just security and data, or security around the data that you're using in your AI models, there's a few things that we should really think about. First of all, smarter automation absolutely relies on good data. There's no question about that. While LLMs do great with pulling in unstructured data to learn from it, clean, structured data does improve accuracy and efficiency. It reduces the likelihood of that AI hallucination, of that thing going off the rails, as you put it. Security and privacy are absolutely critical. You, as an MSP, should know where your AI processes data. You should have that client information classified and protected, and understand exactly what that AI agent can change. But most importantly, there needs to be an audit trail. If you're an MSP, it's easy to have an audit trail. Every time the AI does something, you can just simply create a ticket and log what it's doing to the ticket. Right? Not a big deal. If you're not an MSP and you're just a regular everyday business, right? Well, that's a little bit more challenging for you. So the AI needs to also write logs of everything that it's doing so that that can be reviewed for compliance. You need to make sure that any AI model that you're using, or where you're hosting that model, meets all of your compliance standards like GDPR or SOC 2 or HIPAA compliancy, depending on exactly what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So don't forget the data security side of it as well.
Yeah, look, there's all sorts of trouble you can run into where you expose, particularly, I think there's a customer side of it, of course, where we have to be good stewards of our customers' data, and they have the expectation, and it's rightful, that you're not sharing stuff publicly that you're not supposed to. I think even more common is people might get involved in an enclosed system and forget to think about the internal security and what things you might be exposing to AI that somebody can query or use that you had no desire, or it would have been really disruptive if everybody saw that document or understood the contents of some things. Certainly HR data typically makes sense for that kind of thing, but it just in general, just got to be very careful about how you're handling the security of this, because AI can fulfill requests given to it, and if you have permission to it, maybe on purpose but maybe by accident, people can use it. So you just have to be careful and make sure you understand that. It's shocking to me how often we run into a Google Workspace or an Office 365 setup with very little thought through on the security side of this, and then you unleash a Gemini or a Copilot on it, and you could really do some things you didn't mean to do.
Before you know it, everybody's reviews are public information.
Yeah, or the annualized bonus document is.
Yeah. That's another fun one.
Yeah.
So how do we get started with AI automation? First and foremost, as with any other new platform, start small and scale from there. Pick one or two high impact but low risk items, right? You want high impact because you want your people to see that automation or that AI in action. But you want low risk so that if things do kind of go off a canyon, you're not really having significant pain points. Probably the most important thing on this list here would be number 3, test, learn, and expand. Every solution needs to be tested. You're going to learn something every time you build a new solution. And every time you run a test, you're going to learn something else about that solution. And you need to constantly expand what you're building to incorporate those learnings, and just repeat that test, learn, and expand cycle over and over and over again. And that's how you're going to create really good, refined solutions. Outside of that, create maintenance and audit schedules. You know, an audit log that's never looked at is pretty useless. So make sure you're reviewing the logs that your solutions are generating. You should absolutely measure the outcomes and the ROI of the solutions. Is this really adding value to our business? Because if it's not, I would tell you to turn it off. Don't run it if it's not adding any value. And then the last thing is really the feedback loop. Pull your employees and customers for that feedback. You know, if you've got the accounting software that has a new AI feature that people are turning off, find out why they're turning it off. Take that feedback and do something with it. Improve your solution. Karl, you have anything to add on that?
Oh yeah. So many things come up when I think through this, because this is really the heart of it in so many ways for me. As you go through each of these stages, I remember, oh yeah, we made that mistake. Oh yeah, that didn't work. As we've been kind of at this for really probably meaningfully 4 years now, I think, in doing these automations and rolling them out and doing different things. And I think I like the point of view. Jim Collins is a pretty big author. He's written really famous books like Good to Great and Built to Last, I think is another one. So he's got great books. And one of the things I remember when I saw him in a keynote once, he talked about when you have a big strategy to get after, you don't roll out the big cannon and shoot that off and try to hit your target right off the bat. It's better to shoot little BBs first, see how they go, then work your way up to bigger bullets if you and eventually get to where you're taking that big shot. So that you have a lot of assurances that you're targeting correctly and things are working. And at some level, I feel like that's what this is about, is think first smaller workflows, think lower impact, see how it works, get your feet under you, start to understand what can be done, how long things take to do, test, learn, expand, try to figure out where the smartest next use is. But I think the backside of this, the 4, the 5, the 6 is really a piece of wisdom that I think really caught us off guard at what level. Like, I think about, like, we would implement an automation. It's supposed to run quarterly, and then, you know, the next quarter would come up and run, but then the quarter after that it come up and it didn't run, and like nobody went like, hey, did that thing run? We didn't really think about it, and we're like, oh yeah, we got to go figure out why that didn't run. I think there's a shocking amount of change that goes on, and a lot of things that failed to be thought of from a maintenance or management, ongoing management standpoint. Things change that you don't think about, and there's that AI that you're like, oh, that was affected by that. So there's definitely a need to be diligent in ensuring things operate on schedule and as planned. This is what the maintenance and audit scheduling is all about. It's really a level of diligence, I think, because the nature of AI, people think, well, I've solved my problem, AI's got it now. It's just, you'd have the same problem if you took an employee and said, I taught them that SOP. 2 years later, I've never asked them about it, but I don't understand why they're not doing it the same anymore. You know, it's like AI is the same, automation is the same. Conditions change, things happen, or you don't even bother to look and see, did it actually make a difference? Is it useful actually as we intended? Or, you know, the other thing is do your customers hate it? It might save you time, but are you making your customers mad, or your employees? And so you just can't forget, the backside of this is a real big piece of wisdom that I think is really often overlooked. And I feel like we made these mistakes as we went through this learning process. And if you're not thinking this way through a process, you're just not thinking far enough down the road on what you got to do with that automation and with these things. And it's really a per automation or a per task idea. You got to think through the whole cycle, you know? So yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in this, lot to really take in and make sure you're thinking through.
Yep, you know, and on that final feedback loop, you know, if you're still unsure of where to even begin, one of the greatest questions that you can use to find out opportunities inside of your own 4 walls would simply be go to any of your employees and say, hey, tell me something you do every day that you hate doing.
Yeah,
that almost always turns out some kind of automation opportunity for you that can be huge wins.
Yeah, Yeah, totally. It's definitely a way to get fans is if you're getting their feedback and actually getting after the stuff that's regularly irritating and annoying, for sure.
And if all else fails, you can partner with Raven.
Well,
so
maybe it could even be, hey, maybe I want to accelerate. Maybe I want to do an even better job. Maybe not all else fails.
So by partnering with Raven, to Karl's point, we can help you generate faster ROI. We can remove some of the ramp up times in learning new platforms. And how do we do that? One, we have a library of existing automations. We have expertise in various automation platforms, not just one. We've got multiple service options that are available for every business. As part of our automation catalog, we've got over 70 automations at this point, many of which can even be seen straight on our website. And you could choose and quote a single automation if you'd like. Outside of that, we've got plans designed to meet the needs for virtually any business that's out there with our Essentials, Fast Track, or Innovator plans. We've recently updated those plans to include some additional time for building new solutions or customizing existing solutions for you as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things is as you're getting into this, perhaps you have an internal team that could use some help or some outside point of view to help them with the accuracy or to show them shortcuts or learn from the lessons that we've learned. Or maybe you just don't feel like your team's ready, or you're trying to get it, but they just don't know where to start, or they're just really slow to start. We're great for that as well. Just like so many other things, there's a reason why I don't have lawyers in-house in my business. There's a reason why I don't have internal accountants. And maybe I get to a certain size, I would, but not anytime soon. And so some things that's just helpful, it's more efficient to outsource. And so Raven certainly can be a fully outsourced automation AI resource for your organization that can really drive some meaningful ROI for you. And it's a lot easier than hiring and training somebody up for the role, and potentially a lot less expensive than a full-time employee. Depends on how deep and how far you want to go. But as long as, for me as a business owner, if I spend $1 and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get back $2 or $3 from that dollar, I'm always up for spending $1. That's kind of my point of view. And so like the question is would this be a faster, more effective way? Would it be a nice addition to your existing team to give them some support and some additional insights? Would it be great to have somebody that follows up with the maintenance piece while your people keep creating? There's a few different ways we approach it that I think just are worth considering. And so, if you're looking for that kind of help, this is what Raven Automation does.
Yeah, and in addition to that, if you don't have an automation platform, that's not a big deal. We can actually build, maintain, and host those automations for you. Same goes with your AI agents. We can build, maintain, and host those AI agents for you as well. So you don't have to bring anything other than yourself and an idea.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I love it. That's a relatively new thing that we've figured out how the right way to do that as well. But I think that's pretty exciting. If you don't want to get involved in your own set of like contracts and obligations with RPA or AI vendors, we can help you through that process and kind of own the burden on our end and simply deliver the automation or the AI solution for you.
Absolutely. If you would like to talk more about possibly partnering with Raven to help meet your automation needs, you can simply go to ravenautomation.com or scan the QR code here on your screen and book a call with our account exec team.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing from you, even if it's just to chat and bounce a few ideas off. And if you feel like you want to engage us, we're happy to see if that makes sense as well.
Absolutely. And with that, I just want to say thank you everyone for attending today. As always, please feel free to reach out if there's anything that we can do for you. Thanks and have a great day.